The moment I saw my brother Dante and his wife Valentina standing outside my corporate headquarters, begging security to let them in, I knew that 12 years of silence had just become the most profitable investment of my life. There they were, the same people who had erased me from family photos, blocked my number, and told mutual friends I was too controlling to be around their children. Now they stood in my marble lobby, staring up at the gold lettering that spelled Valdez Vision Financial Consulting, while my receptionist asked if they had an appointment. If this story resonates with you, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. And if you believe in second chances, or in this case, the lack thereof, smash that like button. Trust me, you'll want to subscribe because this tale of going from family outcast to Forbes featured entrepreneur has more twists than a soap opera, and every single word is true. My name is Serafina Valdez. I'm 45 years old, and I'm about to tell you how a family betrayal became the catalyst for building a $3.7 million business empire that now employs 127 people across 6 states. But before I tell you about watching my brother grovel through bulletproof glass, let me take you back to when I thought family meant everything, and success meant nothing without someone to share it with. Growing up, Dante and I were inseparable. After our parents died in a car accident when I was 24 and he was 19, I became more than his sister. I became his guardian, his supporter, his cheerleader, and apparently, his biggest fool. The age gap meant I'd always felt protective of him, but losing our parents transformed that instinct into something deeper. I wasn't just his sister anymore. I was the only family he had left, and I was determined to make sure he never felt abandoned again. Looking back now, I can see how my love became my weakness. When Dante struggled through his first semester of college, I didn't just offer encouragement. I paid his tuition, $47,000 over 4 years, money I'd saved working double shifts as a medical billing specialist while living in a studio apartment that barely fit a bed. When he met Valentina at my own engagement party and fell head over heels, I didn't just welcome her to the family. I helped them buy their first house with a $15,000 down payment that wiped out my wedding fund. Yes, you heard that right. I gave my brother the money I'd saved for my own wedding so he could start his life with the woman he loved. My fiancé David understood, or at least he said he did. We'd get married next year, he promised, when we had more money, when things settled down. Of course, next year never came because David eventually realized he was engaged to a woman who had always put her brother first, and he wasn't wrong. But none of that mattered when I saw Dante's face light up as he carried Valentina over the threshold of their new home. None of it mattered when he called me crying with joy to say she was pregnant. None of it mattered when little Sophia took her first steps toward me at their housewarming party, calling me Tia Sarah in that sweet, lisping voice that made my heart melt. I thought I was building something beautiful. I thought I was investing in love, in family, in forever. I should have paid attention to the warning signs. Valentina had this way of making suggestions that sounded like observations, planting seeds of doubt disguised as concern. Serafina works so hard, maybe she should focus on her own life instead of managing ours. Don't you think it's weird how she always has an opinion about everything we do? I just worry that she doesn't have her own family to take care of. The comments were subtle, delivered with a smile, but I felt their sting even then. What I didn't realize was how effectively she was poisoning my brother against me. Every phone call I made to check on them became interference. Every suggestion I offered about their struggling finances became control. Every moment I spent with Sophia became evidence that I was overstepping boundaries as an aunt. Valentina was building a case against me, and I was too blind to see it until it was too late. The breaking point came on October 12, 2011. I remember the date because it's burned into my memory like a scar. We were having dinner at Romano's, that upscale Italian place downtown, where I'd taken them to celebrate Dante's promotion to assistant manager at the bank. I was picking up the check, as usual, when Valentina cleared her throat and exchanged a look with my brother that should have been my final warning. "Serafina, we need to talk about something," she began, her voice carrying that false sweetness I'd learned to dread. "Dante and I have been discussing our relationship with you, and we've realized that we need some space to grow as a couple." I set down my wine glass, confused. "Space? What do you mean?" Dante couldn't look at me directly. His eyes focused somewhere over my left shoulder as he spoke. "You're too involved in our decisions, Sarah. Every time we try to make a choice as a family, you have input. Every time we face a problem, you swoop in with solutions. We need to figure things out on our own." The words hit me like ice water. "I'm just trying to help. That's what family does." "That's exactly the problem," Valentina interrupted, her mask slipping just slightly. "We're not your children, Serafina. We're adults, and we need to make our own mistakes without you constantly trying to fix everything." I felt the restaurant spinning around me. The couple at the next table was laughing about something, completely oblivious to the fact that my world was crumbling 3 feet away from their breadbasket. "So what are you saying? You don't want me to be part of your lives anymore?" The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Finally, Dante spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "We think it's best if you step back from the family for a while. Give us room to breathe." Step back from the family. The words echoed in my head as I sat there, surrounded by the remnants of what I thought was a celebration. I had given these people everything. My savings, my time, my devotion, my future. I had sacrificed my own relationship, my own dreams, my own happiness to make sure they had everything they needed. And now they were telling me I was too much. I was suffocating them with my love. I paid the check that night with hands that trembled so violently I could barely sign my name. I drove them home in complete silence, and when I pulled into their driveway, Dante finally turned to look at me. For just a moment, I saw something that might have been regret flickering in his eyes. But then Valentina placed her hand on his arm, and whatever emotion had been there vanished. "This is for the best, Sarah. You'll see." Those were the last words my brother spoke to me for 12 years. The aftermath was swift and brutal. My phone calls went straight to voicemail. My texts remained unread. When I tried to visit, they pretended not to be home, even though I could see Dante's car in the garage. The Christmas invitation I'd been expecting never came. Instead, I spent the holiday alone in my apartment, eating takeout Chinese food and wondering what I'd done to deserve this level of rejection from the people I loved most. But the cruelest cut came in the form of a text message 3 months later. 8 words that still make my chest tight when I think about them. "Don't contact us anymore. This is for the best." Just like that, I was erased. 12 years of sisterhood, of shared memories, of unconditional love, reduced to a dismissive text message. The brother I'd raised, supported, and sacrificed for had decided I was disposable. The family I'd built my entire life around had voted me out, and there was nothing I could do about it. The next few months were the darkest of my life. I found myself drifting through my days like a ghost, going through the motions of living without really feeling alive. My savings account, once healthy thanks to careful budgeting and double shifts, had dwindled to $2,847 after years of supporting Dante's dreams. My studio apartment felt enormous and suffocating at the same time, filled with pictures of happier times that now felt like artifacts from someone else's life. I kept my job at Morrison & Associates, the mid-size law firm where I'd worked as an administrative assistant for 6 years. The pay was modest, $32,000 a year, but it was steady and it kept me busy enough to avoid thinking about the hole where my family used to be. My days became routine. Wake up, coffee, work, microwave dinner, sleep, repeat. I spoke to other human beings only when absolutely necessary, and I hadn't laughed genuinely in months. The isolation was suffocating. I remember one particular Tuesday evening, sitting on my couch at exactly 7:23 p.m., eating cereal for dinner, because I couldn't muster the energy to prepare anything more complicated. I was watching a commercial for life insurance, one of those heartwarming spots featuring 3 generations of the same family gathered around a dinner table, everyone laughing and passing dishes and looking radiantly happy. That's when it hit me that I hadn't spoken to another human being outside of work in 11 days. 11 days. I counted them twice to make sure. 11 days of complete social isolation, and I barely noticed because there was no one left to notice my absence. No one would call to check on me. No one would worry if I didn't show up somewhere. No one would miss me if I just disappeared entirely. That realization was more terrifying than the loneliness itself. I started avoiding social media entirely because every platform seemed designed to remind me of what I'd lost. Facebook showed me pictures of other people's families, their vacation photos and birthday celebrations and milestone moments. Instagram was worse, full of happy couples and proud parents and siblings celebrating each other. I'd deleted Dante from every platform the day after that final text message, but I couldn't delete the ache of wondering what I was missing. Were Sophia's first words Mama or Dada? Had she learned to ride a bike yet? Did she ask about her tia Sarah? Or had they erased me from her memory too? Was Dante happy with his promotion? Were they still struggling with the mortgage I'd helped them secure? Did they ever think about me at all? Or had they moved on so completely that I might as well have never existed? These questions consumed me during the long, quiet evenings in my apartment. I'd find myself staring at my phone, my thumb hovering over Dante's contact information, composing and deleting dozens of messages I'd never send. I miss you. Delete. I'm sorry for whatever I did wrong. Delete. Please just tell me what I can do to fix this. Delete. I couldn't bring myself to reach out because I was terrified of the silence that would follow. At least now, I could tell myself that maybe they'd respond if I tried. If I actually called and they didn't answer, if I actually sent that text and they didn't reply, then I'd know for certain that I meant nothing to them. Sometimes the possibility of hope is more bearable than the certainty of rejection. The turning point came on a rainy Thursday morning in March. I was running late for work because my alarm hadn't gone off, or maybe I'd just slept through it. I grabbed my coffee and the stack of legal documents I needed to file that morning, rushing through the lobby of my building toward the exit. That's when disaster struck in the form of an uneven tile that caught my heel and sent me sprawling. Coffee exploded everywhere. Legal documents scattered across the wet pavement. My briefcase popped open, adding insult to injury by dumping the entire contents across the sidewalk. I sat there in the rain, soaked and humiliated, watching important case files absorb puddle water while my coffee cup rolled into the street. That looked painful. Are you hurt? I looked up to see a man in an expensive suit extending his hand toward me. He was probably in his 50s, with silver hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Most importantly, he didn't look at me with pity. He looked at me like someone who'd simply had a rough morning and could use a hand. Just my pride, I managed, accepting his help to stand. And possibly my job when my boss sees what happened to these files. He helped me gather the scattered papers, remarkably unconcerned about getting his suit dirty. Morrison and Associates, he noted, reading the letterhead. Good firm. I've worked with them before. I'm Raj Patel, by the way, business consultant. Serafina Valdez, disaster magnet, apparently. He laughed, a genuine sound that I realized I hadn't heard in months. We've all been there. Tell you what, there's a Starbucks around the corner. Let me buy you a replacement coffee, and we'll see if we can salvage some of these documents. I should have declined. I should have thanked him politely and hurried to work to face whatever consequences awaited me. Instead, something about his easy kindness and complete lack of judgment made me nod. 15 minutes later, we were sitting in a corner booth while I used napkins to blot water from legal briefs, and he ordered us both coffee. So what do you do at Morrison and Associates? He asked, settling across from me with 2 steaming cups. Administrative work mostly. Filing, organizing case documents, basic bookkeeping, nothing too exciting. I paused, studying his face. You said you've worked with them before? Consulting work. I help businesses identify inefficiencies in their operations. Find money they didn't know they were losing. He sipped his coffee thoughtfully. It's actually more interesting than it sounds. You'd be surprised how many companies are hemorrhaging cash without realizing it. Something in his tone caught my attention. What kind of inefficiencies? Oh, the usual suspects. Overpaying suppliers, redundant processes, poor inventory management. Sometimes it's bigger things, like employee fraud or systematic billing errors. I had one client who was losing $40,000 a year because their accounting department was double paying certain invoices and no one bothered to cross-reference the payments. I found myself leaning forward, genuinely interested for the first time in months. How do you spot something like that? Pattern recognition mostly. Everything leaves a trail in the numbers. You just have to know how to read them. He studied my face with those perceptive eyes. You work with legal documents all day. I bet you're good at spotting inconsistencies. He wasn't wrong. 6 years of organizing case files and preparing legal documents had trained me to notice when things didn't add up. I'd caught numerous errors over the years, missing signatures on contracts, incorrect dates on filings, discrepancies between testimony and written statements. It was just part of the job, nothing I'd ever considered particularly valuable. I suppose I am, I admitted, but that's just basic attention to detail. Basic attention to detail is worth its weight in gold in the business world, Raj said seriously. Most people see what they expect to see. The ones who see what's actually there, those are the people who can change everything. We talked for another 20 minutes about his work, about the companies he'd helped turn around, about the satisfaction of solving puzzles that had been hiding in plain sight. When I finally looked at my watch and realized I was an hour late for work, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months, genuine excitement about a conversation. I should go, I said reluctantly, gathering my slightly damp documents. Thank you for the coffee and for helping with my disaster. Wait. Raj pulled out a business card and handed it to me. I meant what I said about pattern recognition. If you're ever interested in learning more about business consulting, give me a call. I could use someone with sharp eyes and legal experience. I stared at the card. Raj Patel, Business Solutions Consultant? It felt heavier than it should have, loaded with possibility I wasn't sure I deserved. I don't have any business experience, I protested. You have eyes, a brain, and 6 years of working with complex documents. That's more than most people bring to the table. He smiled. Think about it. You look like someone with potential who's forgotten their worth. Those words echoed in my mind for the rest of the day. Someone with potential who's forgotten their worth. As I sat at my desk, filing and organizing and performing the same routine tasks I'd been doing for years, I found myself thinking about pattern recognition and hidden inefficiencies, and the idea that there might be more to me than I'd realized. That evening, instead of my usual routine of microwave dinner and mindless television. I found myself researching business consulting online. I learned about financial audits and operational analysis and the kind of work Raj did for his clients. The more I read, the more intrigued I became. This wasn't just about numbers on spreadsheets. This was about solving puzzles, finding hidden problems, and helping people succeed. For the first time since Dante had cut me out of his life, I felt a spark of something that might have been hope. 3 days later, I called Raj. "I've been thinking about what you said," I told him. "About pattern recognition and forgotten worth. I'd like to learn more." "I was hoping you'd call," he replied, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "How about we start with a simple project? I know a small business owner who's struggling with her books. Nothing too complicated. Just a basic review to see if you can spot anything obvious. Are you interested?" My heart was racing, but I managed to keep my voice steady. "Yes, I'm interested." That small business owner turned out to be Elena Rosser, a childhood acquaintance who'd opened a bakery in the Arts District downtown. Elena's artisan breads had been struggling for months, barely breaking even despite a steady stream of customers and rave reviews. She was considering closing down, convinced that the market couldn't support her business. Raj introduced us on a Saturday morning, and Elena led us through her charming shop with its exposed brick walls and cases full of gorgeous pastries. The place smelled like heaven and looked like a Pinterest board come to life. It was clear that Elena had talent and passion in spades. What wasn't clear was why she couldn't make any money. "I don't understand it," she said, spreading her ledger books across one of the cafe tables. "I'm busy all day, every day. People love the food, but at the end of the month, there's nothing left after I pay expenses." Raj nudged me forward. "Take a look at the numbers and tell me what you see." I spent 2 hours going through Elena's records with the same methodical attention I brought to legal documents. At first, everything looked normal. Revenue, expenses, cost of goods sold, all the basic categories you'd expect. But then I started noticing small inconsistencies, invoices that didn't quite match up with inventory purchases, supplier payments that seemed too high for the quantities ordered, timesheets that didn't align with the actual hours the shop was open. The breakthrough came when I cross-referenced Elena's supplier invoices with her actual inventory. According to the papers, she was buying enough flour to supply a bakery 3 times her size, but her storage area could barely hold a week's worth of ingredients. "Elena," I said carefully, "who handles your ordering?" "My assistant manager, Derek. He's been with me since I opened. He knows all the suppliers, manages all the accounts." She paused, studying my expression. "Why?" I showed her the discrepancy I'd found. According to her records, Derek had been ordering and paying for massive quantities of ingredients that were never delivered to the shop. The overage was being shipped to a different address entirely. When we called the supplier to verify, we discovered that Derek had set up a secondary account using Elena's business information, essentially stealing thousands of dollars worth of inventory and reselling it to other restaurants. Elena fired Derek that same day and implemented new inventory controls based on my recommendations. Within 3 months, her profit margins had improved by 340%. She insisted on paying me $500 for the analysis, the first money I'd ever made using my brain instead of my filing skills. But more importantly, Elena offered me something I hadn't had in months: genuine friendship. She started calling to update me on the bakery's progress, inviting me to try new recipes, asking for advice on business decisions. For the first time since Dante had cut me out of his life, I had someone who valued my opinion and enjoyed my company. Word of Elena's turnaround spread through the small business community faster than I'd expected. Within 6 weeks, I had 3 other business owners asking if I could review their books. Within 3 months, that number had grown to 12. My evenings were no longer spent eating cereal and watching television. Instead, I was learning about different industries, solving financial puzzles, and discovering that I had a genuine talent for spotting problems that everyone else had missed. The transformation wasn't just professional. For the first time since my family had abandoned me, I was building something that belonged entirely to me. These business owners didn't see me as too controlling or too involved. They saw me as someone who could solve their problems and help them succeed. They valued my input instead of resenting it. By the end of my first year doing consulting work part-time, I'd helped save 3 businesses from bankruptcy and had generated more income from evening projects than I made in 3 months at the law firm. The work was challenging, rewarding, and completely addictive. I found myself looking forward to Monday mornings for the first time in my adult life. That's when I knew it was time to make a choice. I could keep playing it safe, working my administrative job while doing consulting on the side. Or I could take a leap of faith and bet everything on my newfound abilities. On March 15, 2013, I walked into Morrison & Associates and submitted my resignation. My boss was shocked. My coworkers thought I'd lost my mind. But as I cleaned out my desk and walked away from 6 years of steady employment, I felt something I hadn't experienced since before Dante's betrayal. I felt proud of myself. The decision to go full-time with consulting was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. I had enough savings to last about 4 months if I lived carefully, and enough client projects lined up to potentially make it work. Elena had agreed to become my first official employee, handling administrative tasks while I focused on analysis work. We started Valdez Vision Financial Consulting in my studio apartment with 2 folding tables, a laptop, and more determination than sense. Part 2: The Empire Strikes Back. Our first year operating out of my cramped apartment was a masterclass in controlled chaos. Elena and I worked 12-hour days hunched over folding tables, surrounded by client files and takeout containers. We analyzed everything from restaurant supply chains to construction company payrolls, uncovering inefficiencies that had been bleeding money for years. By December 2013, Valdez Vision had generated $67,000 in revenue and saved our clients over $400,000 in combined losses. But success brought its own challenges. We were turning away potential clients because we simply didn't have the capacity to handle more work. Elena suggested something that seemed impossible at the time: hiring additional consultants and expanding our services. What if we developed our own analysis software? She proposed during one of our late-night strategy sessions. Something that could automate the pattern recognition process and help us handle larger clients? The idea was ambitious beyond anything I'd imagined, but Elena's enthusiasm was infectious. We spent the next 6 months teaching ourselves basic programming while continuing to serve existing clients. I enrolled in online courses through the local community college, studying business analytics and database management until my eyes burned from screen glare. The breakthrough came when we landed our first major corporate client. Meridian Restaurant Group operated 47 locations across the region and was hemorrhaging money despite consistent customer traffic. Their CFO, a sharp woman named Patricia Santos, had heard about our work through Elena's network and was desperate enough to take a chance on a 2-person consulting firm operating out of a studio apartment. The Meridian project was unlike anything we'd tackled before. Instead of reviewing simple ledger books, we were analyzing millions of dollars in transactions across dozens of locations. The scale was overwhelming, but it also revealed patterns that smaller businesses couldn't generate. After 3 weeks of intensive analysis, I discovered something that made my hands shake as I typed up the report. Someone was systematically stealing from Meridian through sophisticated supplier fraud and inventory manipulation. The theft wasn't random or opportunistic. It was organized, methodical, and had been going on for over 2 years. The perpetrator had siphoned nearly $2.3 million by inflating supplier costs and redirecting excess payments to dummy accounts. When we presented our findings to Patricia Santos, she stared at the evidence in stunned silence. The fraud involved her most trusted supplier and had been facilitated by someone with inside access to Meridian's purchasing systems. Within 48 hours, they'd identified the guilty parties and recovered most of the stolen funds. Meridian paid us $127,000 for that project, more money than I'd made in my entire previous year. But more importantly, Patricia became our first corporate advocate. She recommended Valdez Vision to other business leaders, speaking at industry conferences about the importance of independent financial analysis. That recommendation changed everything. By 2015, we'd moved into a proper office space in Commerce Tower, hired 6 full-time consultants, and developed proprietary software that could identify suspicious patterns in financial data. Our client roster included regional chains, manufacturing companies, and municipal government contracts. I barely recognized the woman I'd become. Gone were the days of microwave dinners and social isolation. I wore tailored business suits and carried myself with confidence that felt natural instead of forced. My calendar was packed with client meetings, speaking engagements, and strategy sessions. I'd built something substantial, something that mattered, something that was entirely mine. The financial transformation was staggering even to me. Valdez Vision was generating over $3.7 million in annual revenue, and my personal net worth had crossed into 8 figures. I owned a penthouse apartment overlooking the city, drove a luxury sedan I'd paid for in cash, and had been featured in Forbes as a rising star in financial consulting. But perhaps the most satisfying development was the Valdez Vision Foundation, our charitable arm that provided free financial audits to struggling family businesses. We'd saved 23 companies from bankruptcy and helped countless entrepreneurs identify problems before they became fatal. The foundation had its own staff of 5 consultants and operated with complete independence from our profit-driven work. Local media loved the story of a woman who'd built a consulting empire from nothing, and I'd been profiled in business journals and interviewed on morning television shows. The recognition was gratifying, but it also made me visible in ways I hadn't anticipated. Which brings us back to that moment when Elena burst into my office, pale and clutching her phone like it might explode. "Serafina, there are people in the lobby asking to see you. They say they're family." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Family. After 12 years of absolute silence, the only family I had left was standing in my corporate headquarters. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd thrown me away when I had nothing, and now they'd come looking for me when I had everything. "Tell security to escort them to conference room A," I said calmly. "I'll be down in 5 minutes." I used those 5 minutes to study myself in the bathroom mirror, adjusting my jacket and checking my makeup. The woman looking back at me bore little resemblance to the broken, desperate person who'd been cast out over a decade ago. This woman commanded respect. This woman had built an empire from scratch. This woman owed nothing to anyone. The elevator ride to the lobby felt eternal and instantaneous simultaneously. When the doors opened, I stepped into my marble-floored reception area and saw them immediately. Dante looked older, grayer around the temples, wearing khakis and a polo shirt that had seen better days. Valentina stood beside him in jeans and a blazer that was trying too hard to look expensive. But it was the teenage girl with them who stopped me cold. Sophia, my niece, now 16 years old, tall and beautiful with Dante's eyes and Valentina's sharp cheekbones. She was staring up at the Valdez Vision logo with curiosity rather than recognition, and I realized she probably didn't remember me at all. Ms. Valdez? Our receptionist, Jennifer, appeared at my elbow. Your guests are waiting in conference room A as requested. I nodded, not trusting my voice. As I walked past my brother and his family toward the conference room, I felt their eyes following me. When I turned to hold the door open for them, I caught Valentina's expression of barely concealed shock as she took in the awards lining the hallway walls, the expensive artwork, the obvious signs of success. Conference room A was designed to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. The mahogany table could seat 20 people comfortably. Awards and certifications covered one entire wall, including my Inker 5000 Recognition and Entrepreneur of the Year plaque. I took my seat at the head of the table and gestured for them to sit across from me. The power dynamic was unmistakable and completely intentional. Dante, Valentina, Sophia. I nodded to each of them in turn. This is unexpected. Dante cleared his throat nervously. Sarah, you look incredible. This place is amazing. We had no idea you'd done so well. It's Ms. Valdez here, I corrected gently. And you're right. You had no idea, because you made sure you wouldn't have any idea 12 years ago. Valentina jumped in, apparently deciding direct approach was better than small talk. We saw the Forbes article about your company. We're so proud of what you've accomplished. The audacity was breathtaking. Proud, I repeated. How interesting. Sophia spoke for the first time, her voice uncertain. Are you really my aunt? Mom and Dad said you moved to Florida and didn't want to see us anymore? The lie hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral. Did they now? How fascinating. What else did they tell you about me? Before Sophia could answer, Elena appeared in the doorway with a legal pad and pen. Ms. Valdez, would you like me to take notes for this meeting? Please, I said, watching Dante and Valentina exchange uncomfortable glances. Elena's presence transformed this from a family reunion into a business meeting, and everyone in the room felt the shift. Dante tried to regain control of the conversation. Sarah, we know things ended badly between us, but we're family. We've made mistakes, and we want to make things right. Make things right, I mused. After 12 years of silence. Tell me, Dante, what specifically do you want to make right? Valentina apparently decided subtlety wasn't working. We're going through some financial difficulties. Dante lost his job, and we're behind on the mortgage. We were hoping you might be able to help us. There it was, the real reason for their visit, delivered with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer. They needed money, and they'd swallowed their pride to come asking for it. I see, I said calmly. So you're not here because you missed me, or because you realized you made a mistake when you cut me out of your lives? You're here because you need something. Dante had the grace to look ashamed. It's not just about the money, Sarah. We've missed you. Sophia barely remembers her aunt, and that's our fault. We want to rebuild our relationship. Rebuild, I repeated thoughtfully. Then I opened a desk drawer and pulled out a thick file folder. Before we discuss rebuilding anything, let's review what we're working with. I spread documents across the conference table with the same methodical precision I used for client presentations. Bank statements, canceled checks, loan documents, receipts. 8 years of financial history laid out in chronological order. College tuition for Dante, $47,000 over 4 years. House down payment, $15,000. Car repair loan, $3,200. Wedding expenses, $4,800. Startup capital for your failed consulting business, $8,000. Various smaller loans and gifts, $2,400. I looked up at their stunned faces. Total financial support provided to Dante Valdez, $9,400. Amount repaid, $0. The silence in the room was deafening. Sophia stared at the documents with wide eyes while her parents sat frozen in their chairs. You kept track of everything, Dante whispered. I'm a financial consultant, Dante. I keep track of everything. I gathered the papers and slid them back into the folder. Now, before we discuss your current financial difficulties, I have some news that might interest you. I opened another folder and pulled out a private investigator's report. 6 months ago, I hired someone to look into your circumstances. Would you like to tell Valentina about your gambling problem, or should I? Dante went white. What are you talking about? Casino Aurora every Tuesday and Friday for the past 2 years. Total losses, $73,000. 3 secret credit cards. A second mortgage on your house that Valentina doesn't know about? Shall I continue? Valentina turned to stare at her husband, her face cycling through confusion, realization, and fury. Dante, what is she talking about? I can explain, he started, but Valentina was already standing up. You've been gambling? For 2 years? Is that where our savings went? Is that why we're losing the house? The family implosion I was witnessing should have felt satisfying, but instead, I felt something closer to pity. These people had destroyed their own lives through lies and poor choices, and now they were destroying each other in my conference room. Sophia was crying quietly, overwhelmed by revelations about her father's secrets and her parents' deception about me. This 16-year-old girl was the only innocent party in the room, and she was paying the price for everyone else's failures. Valentina gathered her purse and stood up. I can't do this right now. Sophia, we're leaving. Actually, I said quietly, Sophia is welcome to stay if she'd like. I think she deserves to hear the truth about what happened 12 years ago. Sophia looked between her parents and me, then sank back into her chair. I want to stay. Valentina's face contorted with rage. You cannot poison my daughter against us. I don't need to poison anyone, I replied calmly. The truth speaks for itself. After Valentina stormed out, dragging Dante with her, I spent an hour with Sophia, answering her questions and showing her photos from when she was small. She was bright, thoughtful, and heartbreakingly mature for her age. When I offered to pay for her college tuition regardless of what happened with her parents, she cried with relief and gratitude. 3 days later, Dante returned alone. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks, and his hands shook as he sat across from me in the same conference room. Valentina filed for divorce, he said without preamble. She's taking Sophia and moving to her mother's house in Phoenix. I'm going to lose everything. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and meant it. I've been thinking about what you said, about the money I owe you and the lies I told. You were right about all of it. I destroyed my life because I was too proud to ask for help and too weak to face my problems. He pulled out a folded piece of paper and slid it across the table. This is a treatment program for gambling addiction. I've already enrolled. I'll pay back every penny I owe you, with interest, even if it takes the rest of my life. I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or false promises. Instead, I saw genuine remorse and something that might have been hope. There's one more thing, Dante continued. I want to work for you. Not because I need a job, though I do, because I want to learn from you. I want to understand how you built all this from nothing after we threw you away. The request surprised me. You want to work for your little sister? I want to work for the most successful businesswoman I know, he corrected. The fact that you're my sister just makes me prouder and more ashamed at the same time. I considered his proposal carefully. Dante had hurt me more deeply than anyone else in my life, but he was also the only family I had left besides Sophia. Forgiveness wouldn't come easily or quickly, but maybe redemption was possible for both of us. Entry-level position, minimum wage. You report to Elena, not to me. You prove yourself the same way everyone else here has to prove themselves, and you continue with the addiction treatment no matter what. Yes, he said immediately. All of it. Yes. As I watched my brother leave my office that day, I reflected on the strange journey that had brought us both to this point. 12 years ago, his betrayal had destroyed the person I thought I was supposed to be. But it had also freed me to become the person I was meant to be. Sometimes the cruelest gift someone can give you is showing you exactly who they are. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is deciding you deserve better than their worst behavior. My empire wasn't built on revenge, though revenge was certainly a pleasant side effect. It was built on the radical act of believing in my own worth after everyone else had decided I was worthless. That belief had generated millions of dollars, employed hundreds of people, and saved countless businesses from failure. And now maybe it would save what was left of my family too. But that story is just beginning. Because 3 weeks after Dante started his new job, I received an invitation that would change everything I thought I knew about success, family, and the power of women who refuse to stay down. Dr. Patricia Williams wanted to meet with me about a partnership opportunity that would dwarf everything I'd built so far. That conversation would have to wait for another day,